Hello, this is Sabina at Cross Keys Crafts with part 2 of my video where I'm creating more cards with these backgrounds I made in part 1. I cut stamps from, or rather die cuts from Fun Foam, and I stamped with them. I used my Dinkles and Brushos as ink, and I created this watercolour effect. I didn't say that in the first video, but when I was naming my video I realised it's some sort of watercolour effect. So yeah, and I said in my last video I would create some more cards with these. So I'm setting these aside at the moment. What I have prepared off camera is I have cut this panel to size, this as a 5x7, and I've already glued it onto the card base. And my idea for this one is, it is quite busy. The leaves aren't defined everywhere because I have got these blobs of orange as well as orange stamps. So my idea was to actually just use it as a background colour and to create some panels over this. I got the idea from a post, or quite a few posts actually, on a Facebook group, and these people who had created these cards, it's a bit like a window but not a straight one. I have created cards before where I have got a panel here, a panel here, but these people who posted have used some wavy dies, and I had these for ages. I think I got these from Germany. There's some stitch dies as well. So I cut myself another white panel, same size. I could have cut it a bit smaller because I know I will cut a section away, but I had a little play having a look how I want, or how much of the background card I actually do want. With these you have to be careful. If you want the stitch bit, you need to leave that facing towards the outer side, so this one facing down and this one facing up. I might even have had it the wrong way around. So this one needs to be facing up this way. So I had a thought earlier, and this will be a card for a dear friend. So I decided, because she likes birds, and we both like birds and we go bird watching sometimes, I thought I'm going to use these die cuts from my bird dies. I've got these 4. I'm not sure I want to use them all. And I also had the idea to just cut out her name in letters and put them onto these panels. As an idea, you could, rather than cutting them out and sticking them on, you could cut into the cardstock if you wanted to, but I didn't want to faff around with filling bits in, so I wanted to leave this simple. So as I said, I had a little play. I will stick these down in a moment, but I want to show you so you could have just a small bit of the background showing. You could have a bigger area showing, but my idea for mine is I want to have it opening like this. So really a smaller section there and a wider section here. I think this brings really interest to the card. And then I will adhere these birds afterwards, probably not all of them. The only important thing is, because I've got very delicate feet, I want to keep those on the wide areas. And oh, I didn't mention that I want to pop these 2 panels up so they're raised up a little bit, and then these have to be popped up as well in the background. So I want to show you how I do that. Yeah, so I will quickly cut this off camera, and I think I will already stick these down with foam tape. I will use some bigger strips for this. No, I'll tell you what, I won't stick them down yet. I'll tell you why. Because I want to adhere these first, and then I can see how much foam I need on the back, rather than sticking them down and then faffing about trying to put something underneath. Yeah, I think that might be an idea. Oh, whilst I'm at it, I also had a look at these things. I had a look at my stash, what sort of autumn related dies I have. I found these. I think they're quite cute. When I bought them I was a bit disappointed that they're cut in one, that they don't cut them into pieces for paper piecing, but I thought these would look nice as well. So have a look in your stash. Obviously I've still got the leaves here as well. I could have just used those if you want to keep it neutral, but as I said, I went for the birdies. So I will quickly cut these off camera and then I'll show you how I adhere them. Yes, I've cut my 2 panels now. I swapped the wavy lines around actually because I wanted the less wavy one at the top to put the name along. But it's up to you. Have a look what you've got in your stash. If you don't have these dies, you can easily cut these waves by hand. If you want to do, you could mark it on the back and just cut it out with your scissors. You don't need wavy dies really. So I'm starting off with putting the name on here. So I'm starting with the last letter. This one's easy because I don't mind how far it goes into there. If you want to have anything central, you ideally start with a middle letter, but with this one I will just start it here, and I think I will just go along the stitch line here. I've got a bit of an edge here next to the stitch line, and I will just align it there, just making sure the letters are evenly spaced. I might move it away a little bit from the edge. So again, I think I do this off camera. I will use my, oops, just fell down there, my two-way zig glue. I find this is the easiest for delicate die cuts. It's mess free. It's a blue ink, and you just need to, let's just find some scrap paper here. Just need to dab it a little bit like you do with your Posca pens, and you can either go along like this, or sometimes I just dab it down. It's a bit of a blue colour, and once it turns clear it is tacky and can be glued on. So I shall be doing this off camera again, spare you the footage. And with the delicate pieces I like to use my interlocking tweezers just to pick these up and place them rather than getting my fingers in the way. I can easily move this about now just to place it down and press it down, and it's perfectly adhered and nothing oozing out. There's a speck of something there. There we go, it's gone now. So very easy to do. As I said, I will do this off camera now and then I come back. This took me about a minute to stick the letters on, so that was really easy. They took a bit more space. They took up a bit more space than expected. So I've only got space for one birdie here, but I really like this one that looks at the name. I don't like birds to look out of a card, so I would have these facing that way and this one facing that way. I would not have this one here, but maybe that's just me. So my idea is just to stick these on like this, maybe a bit overlapping, just to cover a bit of the background, but I don't want it to be covered too much. I still want it to show as a background. So just see if I want the third. I think the fourth bird would be too much unless I move him down a little bit, him or her. I could do that. One thing I'm just contemplating is whether I should cover the back of these birds and just put a black eye behind them. I think I might quickly do this. So what I'm doing is just from some very thin cardstock, I will cut a little piece, maybe even with my hole punch, and just glue this behind. I'll show you that. I'll do this off camera, but again I'll show it to you before I put the birds on the card. I went for brown cardstock in the end because I thought it would harmonise a bit better with the colours here. It's less harsh, although you don't see a lot of this. So I just used my hole punch and just used the two-way zip glue again. I've also just stuck down this little birdie already. Again, the good thing about the two-way zip glue is rather than using liquid glue, some of these lines here on my dies, they are actually cut through. So if I put liquid glue on here, the glue might ooze out on the other side, so I'd rather use this glue here, and it works perfectly. So I'm just thinking now how far I want this one up. I think this one could sit a bit higher up, so I'm just putting glue on the bottom here and on the feet. Sorry, I'm going off camera there. Let me just pump this again, making sure I've got enough glue here. So I'm trying not to touch the panel too much because I haven't glued these down yet. So I really want to make sure this just sits here. I'm just pressing it down thoroughly. Could have put a bit more glue in the back there, which I can still do. I can just add a bit more here if I wanted to. But once I put, sorry, I'm going off camera again. But once I'm putting my double-sided adhesive on there, it will be fine anyway, my foam pads. So this one, yeah, I think same height. I will just maybe just glue down his tail a little bit as well. So spot on there, on the legs and on the bottom here. Bit more here. The important thing is to just press it down thoroughly so it can adhere well enough. And then the last one, again, I can play around with it, have a look where I want it. Do I want to show more of the background, or do I want to, I think I will lower this and definitely show more of the background. So, and now that I've adhered these on this on these panels, I know where to put my foam pads. So I'm just taking normal foam pads. I had these strips here on the side, but they are very thin. I think I'll get some thicker foam pads out. Just wait, bear with me. I have got this really cheap adhesive. I can't remember whether it's from Poundland or where it's from. I know it doesn't stick down that well. It seems to be well adhering well, and then it comes off very soon. So I'm going to use my Cosmic Shimmer glue, and I'm going to put a bit of that glue on here as well. So I'm just cutting this to size. Ooh, very sticky. Also, I've seen that other crafters do. The thing about using liquid glue on here also means you've got a bit of wiggle room when you need to readjust your piece. So just putting this on here. So, and then I will put thin bits on here and smaller pieces. A little trick for cutting smaller pieces from your roll, just use some release paper. This one's from some vinyl, or maybe if you've had some other adhesives, just put it on there, and then it's very easy to cut without it sticking. So that's really useful to know. So I think again I will do this off camera, keep this video short, because I've got 2 more cards to make. So I shall do this quickly, and then I'll just show you the finished card. So this is my first card finished. I'm really pleased with this. It was quite quick to make, except for me having to put glue on both sides of the adhesive strips. And the glue does show a little bit. It gets a bit bumpy here, but I'm hoping that when it dries, it'll be fine. And yeah, I think this is a really nice card. I always like personalized cards. I haven't put the happy birthday on this one. I thought about it, but then I thought I'd just put the happy birthday on the inside, and she can actually display it all year round if she wanted to. And yeah, and I think it displays the background nicely. This way it's just like patterned paper rather than being the main focus of the card, because the main focus now are the birds. So that's one of my ideas for these backgrounds, and stay tuned for the other 2 cards. I won't make them tonight, we'll make them probably tomorrow or the day after, but they will all be part of this video, so stay tuned. So it's 2 days later. The first card I made in this video has already gone to its recipient. So, and I had a little play with this background. I have cut it slightly smaller than 5 by 7 because I want to put it on a 5 by 7 card base, which I cut myself from an A4 piece of cardstock. And I had a look at my Lavinia stamps. My idea was to use some silhouette stamps that will cover the background nicely but leave enough space to show these leaves. And at first I had a look at this little badger, which looks really nice, but I actually used my acetate here to give that a little try, and this is a good tip. And I already saw that I don't like the fact that where the badger should be white, I could see the leaves peeping through. So if you wanted to use something like that, a stamp that is not a proper silhouette stamp, you will have to mask it first and then do the stamping. So I ended up with these. This is I think it's called a deer. I'll look at this up. I'll link to all these stamps below. And this, I know this is a small one. And again, I had a look at a squirrel here that I thought this, but I dismissed this because it's facing the same way as the deer. And I like to have animals that sort of face each other. So I will use my owl again. You've seen me use it a few times. And I will put it back on this branch. But I had to play with this because of the deer is quite high. And normally I would have the branch here. And I thought these would be too close to each other, or the owl would be too much on the top. And then I realised if I have the branch coming in from the top and bending down like this, which looks natural because maybe the owl had a bit too much to eat and will bend it anyway, I can pop it on here. I've got enough space above the deer, got enough space here, and this would work nicely, I think. I will stamp these all separately. I could stamp the branch and the deer at the same time, but I don't want to. I will lift him up a little bit from above the ground, but I will ground him a little bit later with just a little bit of ink, probably just with a stencil brush. This one obviously I have to stamp separately because he will have to sit on the branch. And normally I would go in with black, but because these are warm colours, I decided to use my VersaFine Clair Pine Cone, which is a very dark brown, and I think this would be so much nicer. So I'm using my, what's it called, Creative Craft Products stamping platform. Started using that. I find this so much better than the Tim Holtz I have. So I'm just a bit conscious that I might have to put another magnet over there. Let me just test this. Nope, see, this is what happens. Maybe here. Yeah, that's better. Because the only thing that happens on this one is the cardstock, especially if the ink is a bit sticky, sometimes lifts up and then you have double stamping if you stamp it again. So let me just move my camera up a little bit. So I'm giving these a thorough coating. And I'm just getting that tissue to wipe this off because it'll end up on my magnet then otherwise. And the important thing is not to shift this lid once you press it down. I've done that in the past. So I'm just getting my pressure tool out. Oh, here it is. Which is just a doorknob with a bit of felt. I'll just make this myself. So the important thing is to let the ink seep into the cardstock, especially as I've got a little bit of mica powder in this one. And then hopefully it's a solid print. It's a bit speckled here, but I don't mind that. Don't know if you can see that. I think this is solid enough. If you're ever unhappy with this, you can go back in with water reactive ink and just with a brush. Can go in with watercolour pencils. There's a little tiny spot missing. I think I will fill that one in with a watercolour pen, a very similar colour. I prefer that to alcohol inks because they sometimes can have a shine to them. So I think I shall do that. So I think just off camera I will stamp the little owl. So I'm placing him so the claws sit on the branch. And you've seen me do this before, so I just do that off camera. And then I'll show you how to fill this in. Okay, I'm not showing you how to do that because something just happened. The back of this stamp isn't very sticky at the moment. It's my own fault because I left it out. I didn't put it back in the packaging. And so I inked it up and it stuck to my ink pad. And now I don't know where to put it back. If I placed it back now on here, that would mean all the ink would go there. So little tip, just take some packaging, which I've got here from the Badger stamp. Any acetate will do. And I can place it on that. So it doesn't matter that it stains the packaging because that'll go in the bin anyway afterwards. So, and I think because I know this is not very sticky in the back, I will just use my removable adhesive for the time being, and I will put that on the back just for this one time. And I've moved it, but that's not a problem because I can move the acetate. And then hopefully that will allow me to pick this up. I can see now where I've got the glue, and I can peel off this now here and can re-ink this, and this will just be enough for me to do the stamping here. So that's just a little tip, so you might just as well watch me do the stamping anyhow. And yeah, take my warning. I always tell myself I should be a bit more Joe Rice and clean my stamps straight away. I just don't. Sometimes I craft and then don't have time because I have to do some work, and then I just leave everything in my craft room. I think there is a trick in how to get the back sticky again, but I'll have to look it up again. I'm sure I've checked it before. I think it's just secret, it's just soapy water. So there we go. He's sitting there in the tree. Okie doke. So yeah, I'll just get my watercolour pencil and I'll show you how to fill this. So I've got these Durban watercolour pencils. Sorry, they're just sticking to my magnet here, the lid. Any pencils are fine really. I don't like to use proper crayons because again they've got a shine to them. So these are really matte and I prefer them. So I've just picked a brown here. It's called Copper Beach. Might be a bit too light. It is, but you can put other colours on top. So some of my colours have disappeared from this. I think I took them to a workshop, so I've got gunmetal maybe going on top. Yeah, and I think this is just fine. Let me just lift this up to the camera. So if you don't know about it, you wouldn't see that there, and it's just got a little bit of shine. If I wanted to, I could come in with a spot of water and spread this out a little bit, because the VersaFine is not water reactive, but I'm just happy as it is, and I shall leave this at that. So I just have to think about what sentiment to put on here, whether I'll make it a birthday card or keep it a bit more general, because I think it works nice as it is. Let me just zoom out again there. So I'll have a quick think. Also off camera I will just put this onto my card base, and yeah, I think that's the card nearly finished. So I have stamped this Thinking of You. This is from the Visible Image Go-To Words. I very recently purchased these. I think they're really useful sentiments, and I like the swirly look. And I like the fact, compared to others I have, because they're photopolymer stamps, they're really solid. You don't squash the sentiments when you stamp with them. And I think these are really useful to have. Let me just show you the actual stamps, because with the packaging it's a bit difficult to read. So yeah, I think these are really nice. But when I took these out of the stamping platform, I hadn't seen that before, I realised here I didn't stamp this close to the edge, so I will just cut down my card base a bit more, just a strip at the top, so it looks like the branch is properly extending, and I will just take an equal amount here of the side. And the other thing I need to do that I mentioned before, I will ground this D a little bit. So I've got a stencil brush here, I've got my Lavinia Elements truffle. I'm just testing this on the side. I've actually got a little bit in the lid here, that might just be enough. See if my brush is too thick. I might need a thinner brush. Bear with me whilst I get one. So I've got a really thin brush here. I think that'll be just enough. So I'm just picking up the ink, testing it here on the side, and just going under the hooves here, just a little bit. Actually disappears a little bit. Might need a bit more. I think the brush is absorbing quite a bit there. If you wanted to, you could use a bit of water, but I'm conscious that I've got water reactive ink in the back, so I don't really want that. So I'm just blending it out a little bit. Yeah, I think this is just enough. Can you see? Just grounds it a bit more. Yes, as I said, I will cut it down, put it on the card base, and then I'll show you the finished card. Yeah, here's the second card in this video. I think this is really nice. Very simple, very easy to make, but I think very effective and full of character. If you wanted to, you could use some embellishments. You could add some Posca pen and put some white on it, but I really personally like the dark brown here, just as a silhouette without adding anything else. And the background's got enough space to show, and yeah, I'm really pleased with this one. So now to come up with a third idea for this card, I've got loads of ideas written down in my little notebook, and I just have to decide on one now. Again, I would like to be the focus of the card without taking away too much, without having too much extra, so I'll have a look through my ideas which one would fit this background best. Okay, so I have made up my mind what I want to do with this, but I just want to share two more ideas with you that I had here. One idea was to actually turn this into a twofer, but basically cutting it out, cutting it into half diagonally, and then just adding a white panel on either side and make two cards. And the white panel, you can just add a sentiment. You could dry emboss that. I've got a leaf embossing folder. You just could put a strip across where you cut it, so you could work with that, and that would give the pattern paper as it is enough space to be the focus of the card, but you could actually turn that into two. That was the idea here that I scribbled down. The other one was to cut these into strips and just put them on a card as panels, and then maybe add a little bit, basically put them on with a little bit of a gap, maybe even at different heights. I've done that before with a Lavinia card where I had a jellyfish, so that's just another idea. You could then add a few more bits, but I'm still left with all these die cuts here, and I've still got critters here, and I decided actually to leave this as one panel, but to put some dimension in by basically putting these on top, but not in white. I want to stain these with the Dinkles as well. I want these to be a bit more solid, but I want to use the same colours. And I also want to colour this little fella, the fox, but I want his face to stay white and the tip of his tail. So I'm going to cut him again, just in some paper to make I might even use a masking sheet. I'll show you that in a moment. And I want to stick that on here, so when I put the Dinkles on, they hopefully keep the face and the tail white. And I think he will be less harsh on this than so will be the leaves, but I can then pop them up not too many, but have a bit more of a focus without taking too much away from the background. So lots of ideas there that I'm throwing at you, but I'm going for this version now. So I've decided to use this Gina K Masking Magic, and I could put this through the die cutting machine, but I just realised I only need, because I only need the face here, I don't need the outline, I have to cut it myself anyway. What I'm doing is here, I'm just pressing this into the die with my hands, and then that will give me an indentation of where I need to cut with my scissors. Can you see that there? And I'm doing the same with the tail, so I can actually use this scrap, and that will just be enough. I'm cutting these out, as I said, with my little scissors, finding my nail scissors in a moment, and I can see this roughly there. So I will then stick this onto here, and then I'm getting my dinkles and brushes out. I have covered my fox now. I was struggling a bit to get the shape right, although I printed it with the die, so I just went in with another piece, just got the curve right there, and here with a little basically triangles, I just put another piece in. So I hope that'll be enough, and I pressed it down properly, so hopefully the dinkles won't seep behind that. I'm not bothering about the ears. You could use a masking fluid, but I think I could fill that in afterwards with some what's it called, like some pearls or so. I have stuck all these down just a little bit with my removable adhesive. I don't know how well they stick down, and I've just put them close together so I don't need to use too much of the dinkles and brushes. So I'm starting with a fox. As before, I'm just applying just a little bit. Also, by the way, I covered my desk generously with this big piece of paper, because when you use the water bottle and you spray, the powder can sometimes spray quite far. Also, when I did the original backgrounds, I noticed I had green dinkles in my nose, so be aware of all of that. So I used quite a bit of yellow there, so I'm just coming in with a bit more of the orange. I might not even need that much. So, and then all I need to do is just get my water bottle and just spray on that. And then it's up to you how much water you use. That dictates how much the things are reacting, and you can see how far it's sprayed. So that might be a bit too much, but I can always use a tissue to mop this up. I'll just get some. So I'm mopping the puddles up a bit because I don't want that many puddles. But what I do want, I already know I want a bit more of colour. So whilst this is still damp, I can now go in with some more of the dinkles, and they will react. So rather than applying more water, I think I will just press these dinkles into here, mop up a bit of the water from the cardstock underneath, and just dab this on here, and hopefully will give a nice effect. It's a bit white there on the edge. Then again, foxes have got a bit wide, so I think I will just leave that there. So with the leaves, I just want to mainly go in with the greens. This is the emerald green BRUSHO, and then I've got the lime green dinkles. Couldn't remember whether I used this one or the pine green on the background, but again, it doesn't matter. Again, I could use some mica powders if I wanted to. So, and I will just have a spot of orange. I'm not sure if it's coming out. And maybe a bit of yellow as well. What I like about these dinkles and BRUSHOs, you never know what's going to happen. It's all a little experiment, but it's usually very nice. I'm just protecting my fox a little bit here. Don't want any green on him. So look at that. I think that looks amazing. Just checking that I don't have too many puddles around them. Could do with a bit more water here, just to activate that. And making sure it catches a bit of colour there on the edge. So let me just lift this up. So they are sitting in quite a bit of a puddle at the moment. So, but I don't want to take too much away from the top. So I'll see if I can seep the puddles up around these leaves. And once I'm sure the top has dried properly, I can lift them off, or they're already coming off, and dry them on a dry background. So I will leave this now for an hour or two until these are properly dry and I can stick them on the card, but I think they look amazing already. And yeah, I shall see you later. It is about 4 hours later and my leaves have dried, and so has my little fox. And when I looked on my desk earlier, I saw the foam die cuts I had, but they were orange, and I got the idea, rather than popping these up on foam pads, I thought I could just cut them again in foam, in craft foam, and then stack up the whole thing, because then I also have the support for the little stem here, which is really good. But I didn't want to use the orange. I had a trial run with that. I prefer the green, which is a bit less bold. So I'm going to glue these down. I think I will find, not the removable, this is the removable one, I'll find my other roller and see whether that will work to glue these on, because I know that both the Cosmic Shimmer glue and the acrylic glue, well, for me anyway, they didn't work that well. So I'll try to use them. For the little fox, I thought I'd leave it for this video to peel off the masking tape. I'm just checking that it's got a feeling of a bit of powder, but that's the Dinkles. So I thought I'll leave the reveal for this video. Just zooming in a little bit. So there you go. Kept the white there, and hopefully the same here without anything having seeped underneath. No, that's lovely. So I will fill in the eye and the nose. I know that already. Because they're recessed, it's not so easy to put, you know, like pearls on. I think I talked about that earlier. So I think I will get a little tool, like a pokey tool, to get that into the areas. Or I might actually have a trial run on one of these pieces, or I will just use my black fine line pen. I'll have a little play off camera at the moment, and I will stick all these so I will stick all these leaves down, and then I come back and talk you through how I want to put them on my card base. Just popping in again in the process. So I had a try run with a bear here, so I'm just using these Stuffed Craft Pearl Effect pearls here, the liquid stuff, and it works quite well, just putting it onto the pokey tool and then just putting it into the recessed bit. It's actually quite easy if you don't put too much on. I said that I think these eyes are slightly smaller than on the bear, but it works okay. So I actually have gone over that a little bit. See if I can remedy that. If not, I can just add this or make this one a bit longer accordingly. Yeah, it's not too bad. So you can see what I'm doing. Daylight's just going. So I'll pop in a bit on the nose as well and leave this to dry. So maybe it's not the best medium to use, but I thought it would be quite nice to have a bit of dimension and the shine. If you don't want this, you could always use some fine liner pen and some glossy accents afterwards. So I'm just, like you normally do with pearls, I'm giving that a bit of a flick from behind, hoping that that'll pop in a little bit into the recessed area. This is picking up, so yeah, I think this will be nice once it's dry. I have stuck down nearly all the leaves. I just left the last one just to show you what I found whilst I was doing this. First of all, mine aren't symmetrical, so if yours aren't symmetrical, make sure you've got the foam pads the right way up. and I found the easiest was to use a roller for the back. So this is the permanent one, and I just rolled it down, make sure I've got this here, and I've got this on some paper, on some scrap paper that can go in the bin afterwards. So when I lift this up now, all the residue that goes over stays on there, and I'm doing it from the other side as well, staying clear of that. So I'm making sure I've got no like threads in between. If I do, I want to push them over onto the piece of cardstock. I don't need to make sure there's glue everywhere. This will still stick down. And then when I place it down, I'm starting at the stalk at the bottom, and then making sure when I place it down that I've got it in the right place. And then if I press it down, this is firmly glued down. So I'm just moving these out of the way because I want to get rid of that sticky sheet of paper here. So conscious that the fox's eyes haven't dried yet. So I have cut this piece of cardstock. Let me just zoom out again a little bit and raise the camera. I have cut this to 4 3/4 by 6 3/4 to fit a 5 by 7 card. I wanted to leave it as big as possible, and I think the fox will go somewhere at the bottom. This is a bit wide because when I stamped this I left a bit too much of an edge. I could put this on the top if I wanted to, but I think I prefer it at the bottom and will hide it a little bit. So my idea is just to have the little fox down here and maybe have some room for sentiment, and now I can play around with these leaves. I might not need them all. I would like them to look like they're falling, and my idea is also to fill in those wide gaps a little bit. I might have the bigger ones at the bottom actually, because I don't want them to be too heavy, if that makes sense. So maybe coming with this one here. Try to alternate the maple as well, one from that side, one from that side. I think this was, if I try to concentrate on the white bits, I think this looks too busy already. So I might just stick to something like this. I tell you what, maybe this one's even too big. So let me have a look what I've got here to play around. So when you have die cuts, have a play. Don't just start gluing them down and realizing afterwards it looks a bit awkward. And I'm trying to make them look like they're falling. Yeah, I think I'm okay with this. So that's one definitely a bit too big. Maybe can squeeze another one in there, but as Joe Rice always says, don't make it look like a pizza. So I don't want to put too much on. So I'll have a little think. I think I'll leave this here for a moment and decide on this rather than deciding it whilst I'm filming. And maybe I'm taking some off again and try again. But this is my tip for you. Also, I will put him on. I could cut him actually in foam as well. I didn't think about that. So I think, but I cut him in either some orange or some white foam, just with my die again. So yeah, and then I'll glue this onto the card base, and I think I will just show you the finished cards. So lots of ideas for you. I hope you got some inspiration from these cards, some ideas. And as I said, I think I said that in the first video, it doesn't have to be leaves, it could be flowers, it could be butterflies. Just get creative with what you have in your stash. So this is what I came up with, because when I was looking around my desk and thinking about what sentiment to use, I found these two die cuts that I actually had cut earlier together with the animals and the leaves, and I'd completely forgotten about them. This one actually said Happy Autumn, but I cut the happy off, and the blessings a bit longer. I find that quite a versatile die, so I'll be linking to that below. I think this is from Amazon, I'm not quite sure. These are definitely from Amazon. There are loads of sentiment dies in the set, and that's quite useful to have. And I just left them in white because I thought that would tie in quite nicely with the white background. I've just spotted a bit of the glue here that I still need to remove. If you've got any sticky bits on the top, you can always use your anti-static powder tool. That gets rid of them quite nicely. This is where the glue tape just goes over the edges a little bit. So yeah, and when I played around with the leaves, I decided these are actually enough leaves. Whichever leaf I add, it'll be just too much, it'll just be too bold. And I think there is a sort of rule of 3, so 3 of them tie in quite nicely in having this movement. And I put the little fox here in the middle, so he's a bit of a focus here as well. And I'm not too bothered now about these white bits. I think they give a bit of space to look at. I will definitely put a bit of glossy accents on his nose and eyes, because the the black pearl stuff has sunk in a bit, so I want a bit of dimension. And I just used my orange biro to go into the cheek. I didn't want any pen to bleed, so the biro was a safe solution there. So yeah, that's my third card. That's my second card in this video, and the first one I've already given away, so I can't show this here. But yeah, lots of ideas I've been throwing at you, as I said before. I hope you find these inspiring. And if you do, you might want to give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of what I'm creating, I post videos on a Wednesday and a Sunday regarding card making or anything paper craft related. But I'm also posting videos on a Friday now, which are not paper craft. So if you're interested or curious about that, you might want to pop in there as well. So if you'd like to see what I'm doing, you might want to subscribe to my channel. I'd be very happy about that. And I'll see you soon with another video.